Brandon Montour with an emotional return, and the Seattle Kraken, are they kind of legit this year?
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Seattle hockey fans, welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. Erica L. Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken, here as always, but we have a special guest, Jennifer Streeter, joining me, also goes by Jenny from On SI. Jenny, we're so grateful to have you on Locked On Kraken, especially knowing that you were at the last Kraken home game. Welcome.
Hi, Erica. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Really grateful to be on a podcast, as always, with another woman in sports, and super excited to talk Kraken. I actually just stepped back into my apartment in good old Texas after being on site for some Seattle NHL coverage. So yeah, super excited to walk through it with you.
Absolutely. And just a reminder that today's episode of Locked On Kraken, once again brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can download that FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com, and you'll win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So we have Jenny on the show. We're definitely going to talk about your experience at Climate Pledge Arena, your second time ever, first time this season. You got to be there with Brandon Montour pregame. We're going to talk about Berkly Catton. We're going to get to know you a little better. I know everydayers are Locked On Kraken loyals and OGers. They know there's a special question I like to ask all the guests, so we're going to get your answer. And then we'll close out with talking a little bit about the NHLers at the Olympics, because I'm here in New York City, my hometown, because the Team USA Summit is here. And we will be this week 100 days till Milan Cortina, the 2026 Winter Olympics. And we know that the NHL players will be returning. So Jenny, we're going to get your thoughts on that. But first, let's go back to the weekend. Brandon Montour had been away for personal reasons. That's what we knew. That's what the team had expressly shared, that they wanted to respect his privacy. We now know, Jenny, the reason that Brandon Montour took some time away. He talked about and was opening up about his brother Cameron, who was battling ALS for the last 3 or 4 years and ultimately passed away about a week ago. And it was Monty's first time back with the team. You were in the locker room. It's never an easy topic or discussion when you're talking about someone passing away from a long-term illness and that grief, that feeling, but I think that, at least as someone who's been through that myself, and I talked about this on another show, there's also some power and solidarity in being able to talk about it and just be in your feelings. And that's kind of what I took away from Brandon Montour's pregame conversation. But Jenny, again, you were in the locker room. What was the sentiment being a part of that scrum and hearing Monty talk for the first time since the passing of his older brother?
Yeah, Erica, really good question. First of all, my sincerest condolences to Monty and his entire family. Obviously a super delicate and hard situation that for all of them, by far the most emotional media scrum I've ever been a part of, and really grateful I got to be there to help Monty kind of share that story after he revealed what he did to us. But yeah, it was honestly something that he initiated with us, with the media, that he wanted to talk about. He kind of just told us how hard his older brother Cameron fought with ALS, and that he unfortunately passed away 7 days ago as we're recording this. We're recording this on Monday, October 27th. So he passed away last Monday at age 34 from ALS, and obviously took time away to grieve and focus on his older brother. His older brother is survived by his wife and 3 daughters who Monty has said he's specifically been, focusing his efforts on, but really also told us how he's looking to continue honoring his brother every day. And, I kind of asked him whether, he's looking to honor him through his play. And he more so said that, while yes, he is looking to honor him through his play on the ice, he's more so looking to going forth honoring him every single day. So just a really tough situation for him. We did see him pregame against Edmonton walk in with a sweater that said Cam Strong. So kind of showing that after he opened up about it is kind of being more open about the situation with his fans and kind of expressing that. We did get to see him play well against the Oilers, recorded 3 shots on goal. So really a tough day for him and his family, I'm sure, but seems like he's kind of moving back to getting in the swing of things with Seattle. Coach Lambert also said that the Seattle are with him 100% of the way, and that what was interesting that Coach Lane said was that he also thinks that kind of playing with the Kraken will be kind of a welcome distraction for Monty, and hoping that, while he's on the ice, he's able to focus on the game that he loves and kind of use that as an outlet for some energy.
Yeah. And, I think it's something that it can go a number of ways, right? There are times where you need to be and you want to be around family, and you want to be able to be vulnerable around people that you trust and love. And then there are other times where you need a little bit of a break from that. And it does seem like, from what we heard from Montour, and especially, as you said, from Coach Lambert and the organization, that there is an understanding that this is an evolving, ongoing process, and that one day, one moment might be different than the last. And again, as someone who has gone through her own journey in grief, I wouldn't have known this and about this process if I hadn't gone through it. It's just one of those things. And I think those of us who've gone through it try to be protective in some ways, because you want people to not know this feeling, and so for Monty to really step in, like you said, play well, play on the ice, and get back to something that brought him joy. I mean, it's hard. It's heartbreaking. It's hard. It's difficult to talk about. It can be awkward. And Montour also acknowledged that. It's like, no one knows what to say. No one knows what to do. But it's also important. And so I've said it before on the show, and I'm sure, Jenny, you agree. It's just about, whatever that looks like for him, respecting it and honoring it. But it did come with the Seattle Kraken coming back home. And they were able to get another win. I said this also before on the show, from the Montour perspective, I don't know that anyone really honestly cared whether the team won or lost, as long as he was feeling good about it. But the team did win, and the team is getting eyes, and people are asking questions about this team, especially now with a player like Montour back in the lineup. Can they be a legit team? Are the days of the lunch pail blue collar Kraken over? Jenny, I'm going to come to you. You got to see that win over Edmonton, coming off of the heels of a win against Winnipeg as well. So what are your thoughts on the Kraken?
Absolutely. 100%. I do think they are legit. Just being there on press row. Yes, obviously it was a win for Seattle, but the type of quality hockey that was on display, I mean, the goals that were scored, it was really hard to contain myself on press row, just seeing the beautiful play that was being displayed on the ice. And, post game in the locker room, one of the other members of the media asked, what is it like to get a win over the Edmonton Oilers specifically? Because, this is a team that is really storied in the NHL, is known for being a lot of success. Obviously, the Stanley Cup runner-ups from most recently. So that was a question that was asked. And the players' first answer was, well, we're a good team too. So I really think it's important that Kraken fans know that, yeah, the Kraken are one of the most fun teams to watch. They really build a really fun atmosphere at Climate Pledge Arena, but they are taking themselves seriously, and it's time for other people to start taking them seriously too. The quality hockey that's on display was just unmatched.
I love that you said they're taking themselves seriously, and we're a good team too. We've heard Lane Lambert say that night in and night out. That's a good hockey team over there, but we're a good, expletive team too. He said that multiple times, and I think you're right that this is a team, and it's I don't want to get too into comparing and contrasting from one season to the next. And maybe, the belief level, you have to, as a professional, you have to show up and believe that you can do your job, right? Like that's kind of the thing. They get paid to do that. So it's not about that confidence in that way, but there is something, I think, Jenny, too, when everyone is bought in and everyone is in cadence and you're kind of rowing, all together. And that's, I think, what I'm seeing from this Kraken team. It's not just that they're saying we're a good hockey team too, but they're willing to put in the work to back that up.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Like I said, also, just the things that Coach Lambert was impressed with post-game that he spoke to in his media availability was not just the puck control that was on display, but how proud he was of his players with what they were doing when they didn't have the puck. You know, things that often go unnoticed in hockey games is something that the Kraken are really focused on. They're a really detail-oriented team right now. And just going back to your earlier question, are they legit? I do think they are.
Yeah, I love also that you mentioned that commitment to detail, because this is a team that knows they're going to have to be in a dogfight. They're not going to score necessarily 5, 6, 7, 8 goals every night. That's not the kind of hockey that Lane Lambert wants them to play. But as you also mentioned, we are seeing some finesse to this hockey team that we have seen in pockets over the last 4 seasons, but Jordan Eberle is playing phenomenal hockey. Jaden Schwartz, net front presence is the name of the game. Jaden Schwartz is your A1, right? That he is the guy for this team. My sandpaper guy, as I like to say. But I want to ask you, we're gonna go to someone who has eyes, a little bit removed from the Locked On Kraken show. What are your thoughts about Berkly Catton? And is he a legit part, or can he be a legit part of this very legit, very serious hockey team that is the Seattle Kraken right now?
Yeah, I mean, before we get into Burke specifically, who's an extremely talented player, I think it's also fair to point out that Burks is a really talented young player, 19 years old. And I think that really goes to show just how much the league is kind of trending younger and younger. Some of the more talked about players in the league are in that kind of late teenager to early 20s range. Players like Jack Hughes, Trevor Zegras, Connor Bedard, and now Berkly Catton. Like, these are all really young players that were really kind of showing that, age is just a number, especially in this league in particular. Berkly Catton specifically, I got to see him record his first point on home ice, just because the first point he's recorded previously was on the road at Philadelphia. So I think that was a really good moment for him in particular. But what Coach Lambert told me when I asked him about it was that he was the player specifically that he said he's more impressed with what he's doing without the puck. So I think Burks in particular, as a rookie, is really skilled with that kind of detail-oriented hockey that Seattle's focusing on right now.
And I love that you bring that up, because I do think that night in and night out, you're seeing the real-time improvement. And that doesn't come from only hard work. It also comes from a cerebral understanding, a hockey IQ, and then again, that confidence, being able to execute. And I think he's getting more and more confident, more and more comfortable. But specifically with the Seattle Kraken team, Jared McCann still out, Capo Caco out, Freddie Gaudreau out. And I'm just talking about forwards now. We saw Mason Marchment in and out of the lineup for a little bit here. Obviously, we talked about why Montour was away. Has he shown enough for the Seattle Kraken to make some accommodations and keep him on this team? Because as you know, Jenny, if he can't find his way on this NHL roster, then there's no choice for him but to go back to junior hockey.
Yeah, Erica, that's a really good point. I mean, I guess all I can say to really answer that question is that Coach Lambert is happy with his development. And I really do think, for 2 points in 4 games, that's for someone 19 years old, that's as about as much as anyone can really show and can kind of expect from him. I think he's excited to just keep proving himself. But from what I know, the entire Kraken organization is happy with his development. They think he's trending in the right direction. So I think for Burks in particular, the only direction for him to go is up.
I think you nailed it right there. Again, the Seattle Kraken are in a situation where, at least not right now, Jenny, they don't have to answer the question of if he's a full-time NHLer, because they have some wiggle room, including that we heard moving Jared McCann to injured reserve was a little bit to play that 23-man roster game, which has allowed Catton to stay in the lineup. But coming up, Jenny, we talked about the Kraken, but I want to have our listeners get to know you a little bit better. I see you got your Colombian Columbia journalism hat on. We're going to talk about that. I'm here. You can probably hear the crowd behind me in the busy New York City. We're going to ask you a little bit about your journey in hockey. And then we'll close out the show just with some broad strokes things about NHL players going back to the Olympics. That's coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. It is hockey season, everyone. We're excited for this very real Seattle Kraken team, but we also know that the NFL is in full swing, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets that you can use across the app. You can build your parlays, try player props. You know, I love looking at the future bets, and you can just follow the live lines during the game. It makes watching football, hockey, or any of your favorite sports more exciting when you've got a little something on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today to get started. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here alongside Jenny Streeter from On SI, joining us on this episode of Locked On Kraken. Jenny was at that great game, that home game against the Edmonton Oilers, a team that, I mean, we know what they were able to do coming out of the Pacific Division in the last 2 seasons in particular. So a great measuring stick there for sure. But Jenny, as you mentioned, you were on press row. Again, we see your hat there for those on our audio platforms wearing the Columbia Journalism School hat. So, you know, you were able to go to J School. You're a hockey reporter now. We were talking a little offline about some of the stops that you've made here. But my first question, and the question that I like to ask guests to get to know them, comes from the movie Brown Sugar. When did you first fall in love with hockey?
Yeah, such a good question. Also with the hat, again, I just stepped in my apartment after being on the road, so I didn't even realize that this was the hat.
It was perfect,
but I love it. Yes, as for when I fell in love with hockey, as you mentioned, I am a proud alum of the Columbia Graduate School of Journalism, graduated from there in May of 2023. And while I was there, I got to live in the city for a year and attend many, many, many New York Rangers and New Jersey Devils games. And honestly, just from as I was studying sports journalism and just as I was living in the city and taking advantage of the sports that I got to see in the area, I just completely fell in love with the sport. Coming from being a college reporter during my time at Texas A&M, I am a firm believer that while college athletics are fun, you know, just with how much the NCAA has stepped in lately and as rules have gotten stricter and stricter, you know, we're kind of seeing college athletics be on a little bit of a tighter leash. And something that I've loved about hockey specifically is just the aggression. You know, that's something I've never really gotten to watch or to even be allowed to cover during my college reporting days, and just being able to see the passion that NHLers bring to the ice, and, you know, how kind of tensions boil over. Sometimes that's something that has really made me fall in love with the sport. It's something that I always think is super fun to cover. So yeah, I fell in love with hockey just as a fan, and as my career in sports journalism has continues, it's kind of transitioned from fan to reporter, and it's just an honor to be here.
I love that. Also, I think there's probably at least a few everyday listeners who are probably laughing and being like, oh no, Jenny said she loves the physical play. Listen, it's not that I don't like physical play, Jenny. I actually love it. I love some sandpaper, as I say, in a hockey player, in an athlete overall. But I gotta say, I'm not a fan of hockey fights. I'm just not. I
feel like the answer I gave, like, that's such an overrated answer. You know, like, everyone loves the fighting, but you know, just from my background coming as, you know, a college sports reporter, that's something you don't get to see. It's something you don't get to talk about. And, you know, dare I say, but in the NHL, that's one of really like the only professional sports aside from, you know, boxing or wrestling, obviously, where the entire premise of the sport is that that's something that's really allowed. So I think it's super fun. And, you know, Seattle in particular has fun with that as of recently, the fake out punch Mason did against Winnipeg. I mean, these are moments that everybody talks about. And while people want to say, people can say and be totally fair that that's the overrated answer, when moments like this happens, it's the lead storyline everywhere. So
no, you're right. And like I said, it's a personal opinion that I hold, and I stand on 10 toes down. And again, I think the way that you answered the question, I respect it. And I agree with you. That's also why I like hockey. I just don't know, like, knucking and bucking when someone's wearing a visor and you're, bare knuckles. I don't know that. I feel like we can make better choices. And you're wearing, knives and being on the ice. I don't know. Maybe I just worry too much. I'm like the worried auntie in the crowd, like, oh no, I just want everyone to be okay.
Hey, that's fair too.
All right. But you talked about, covering other sports and coming up in J school and cutting your teeth. We all know how it is. You got to get that experience. You try a bunch of different things. But, what is your favorite part, regardless of sport? But, what has really drawn you to journalism and being able to be a reporter and go into locker rooms or have conversations with coaches and players and even sometimes their families? Like, what is your why, Jenny?
Yeah, so my favorite part of being a journalist is being able to tell stories that go beyond the playing field or beyond the ice. In this instance, stories like Monty's story, that's exactly why I got into journalism, being able to share the tough stories the stories that kind of make readers and people who tune into journalism and sports as a whole realize that these aren't just athletes, these are also people who deal with real life situations just like us. And yeah, I just really love being able to share stories that mean something to both the reader, the athletes. I've always, anytime I get to speak to an athlete's family and kind of share how proud they are of the athlete and kind of their story as well, it's really just really fun stuff. I love the heartwarming aspect of sports journalism for sure.
Yeah, and I think there's so much that you could break down: sports as a business, right? Sports as a culture, and all of those are valid. But at the end of the day, I think what has a lot of people coming back to sport is that, again, like you said, it is those heartwarming moments, it's those human moments and those human touches of being able to see an elite level athlete utilize their body in such a high performance way, but also their parents and their siblings, they are humans that love F1 like Joey Decord or whatever the case is, and people love being able to connect in that way with people. So I'm with you, like being able to unearth some of the humanity. Sometimes it happens like it did with Montour, where maybe it's a little unexpected, or we're all kind of experiencing that newness at the same time, and other times you can kind of curate it. So is there, I know we've gone over a few talking points, but since you mentioned this and as we're talking, I'm very curious to know, is there a story that you are really proud of, maybe because of the process? Like, take me to a story that you put out that you just really fell in love and had such a good time with the process, and that comes to your mind.
Yeah, I mean, one recent one, it's not an NHL story, but this past week I had my first big NFL story come out with SI. I did a feature over Efton Chisholm III with the New England Patriots. He's their latest player who went from being undrafted to making the final 53-man roster. And for the entire month of October, I was talking with his high school coach, his college coach, and his father, who is Efton Chisholm II. And, just kind of talking about what the journey to the NFL was like, and just really getting to know them. And that was a story that I kind of really fell in love with the process, really getting to share the hard work it takes to get to the kind of the professional level where you're in league play is really fun. So I guess, yeah, that was a recent story I did that was special to me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And again, right, getting able to speak to families and hearing, I love being able to talk to families, especially parents, and to get their point of view of their child, who is now someone that, it has some celebrity. They're known, they're a professional athlete. And just to hear sometimes like the wonder, right? Like they obviously had a front row seat, but like to hear the wonder and the pride that comes from parents, I think is always just a really fun thing as well. Okay, but speaking of pride, I know that Kraken fans are pretty proud of the environment that is created at Climate Pledge Arena. You got your second dose most recently in the Seattle Kraken win over Edmonton. So, like, where would you rank the vibes at CPA, 1 to 10? Where are you putting the vibes at CPA at?
Oh my gosh. The vibes at CPA are easily at an 11 on a scale of.
That is the correct answer. Well done.
God, just everything there when I go, it's always so, it's like I'm not there for work. Like, it's so fun. The pregame show is completely unmatched. Seeing how they incorporate the sea elements into the franchise and just throughout the entire arena are always so fun. I think while, yes, the Kraken are a very serious hockey team, and it's clear that with the direction they're going and in their skills and in the wins, that's what they want to be recognized for. They really are just so fun. It's such a fun experience for fans. I mean, just off the top of my head, the stars of the game throwing out stuffed fish instead of pucks for the fans. I mean, that's something you can only get with the Kraken.
Yeet the fish. Let's go. I love it. And there have been some fish yeeted. We love to see it. The Kraken haven't always had the greatest record at home. So we're always excited when we get to see the guys yeet the salmon fish. Well, Jenny, thank you for sharing a little bit about your journey. And if you aren't already following Jenny, make sure you do so. Follow her work. Again, not just hockey, but a true storyteller. We love to see it. Great work. I can't wait to continue following what you do. But don't worry, everyone, listeners and viewers, Jenny's not going anywhere. We still have one more segment, and we're going to take a kind of high-level approach and just honestly broach and present some questions that maybe we have about the NHL returning to the Olympics, especially knowing that at least one of the facilities, kind of the main facility, is a little bit up in the air. We're going to get into that and a little bit more as we close out today's episode of Locked On Kraken. This episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Now, we know, again, NHL season is here. You already heard Jenny talk about the vibes. We know the vibes are good at CPA, but maybe you want to see a Seahawks game, or maybe you want to go see the Washington Huskies. We know that nothing beats being in the arena for big moments in your sports team's history. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is just cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in. The app gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Now, I love using Game Time mostly when I'm watching the Mariners. They'll get there. Don't worry about it. They're going to get there, folks. But when I go to M's games, I like to check out the view from my seat before I buy the tickets. I like sitting third base side. I like to, I have a certain way that I want to sit when I'm watching the action. And I can take a look at my seats that I'm thinking about with Game Time. And, I also love that there are no hidden fees. You know exactly what you're going to pay at checkout, so you can ball on a budget. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets, MLB tickets, whatever tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first order. Again, that is the Game Time app, and code is LOCKEDONNHL. LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. We are here with Jenny Streeter from On SI, a reporter that was most recently at Climate Pledge Arena reporting on your very own Seattle Kraken. We heard her take on Brandon Montour's emotional return, if Berkly Catton could be a legit NHLer, but also, how real is this Kraken team? But now, Jenny, we're going to take to the international stage. We know that we had 4 nations last year. I will be honest, I was even talking to a colleague earlier. I was a little bit skeptical because as someone who comes from the women's hockey game, international hockey is huge. It's kind of the pinnacle on the women's side. I've covered college hockey as well. But when you're around people who are hockey fans through the NHL, they're not always thinking about the international game. But things kind of changed a little for Four Nations. And I was honestly pleasantly surprised and very okay to be wrong about how NHL fans in particular were able to embrace an international style tournament. I really liked it. I think the vibes were good for Four Nations, which of course is all in service of the Olympics. But first, let me ask you about Four Nations and kind of this integration of more international flavor in the NHL. For some athletes, we've heard for years that they've wanted to be at the Olympics. And it seems like the NHL and the Players Association have been trying to get a few more opportunities on the docket, including with Four Nations, which is something that we think we might see again. What was your take on Four Nations? Do you think it was a success? Do you think it was a good run up to the Olympics 2026 in Italy?
Yeah, I think Four Nations was definitely successful. I mean, first of all, what professional athlete doesn't want to represent their country at the highest level of play? I mean, such an honor for those athletes, something that so many of them feel so passionate about, and for good reasons. Of course, I think Four Nations was definitely a good kind of hint at what's to come for the upcoming Olympic Games. I think I would go as far as to argue that's why it was made such a big deal, was to hype up the upcoming Olympics. But yeah, just always international hockey is super fun. But to your earlier point, I think it's so interesting to see the kind of intersection between how people react to the split between NHL and international play. You have some NHL fans who are selfishly kind of like, I want them to stay healthy. I want them to be like perfect for my team and in the league. And then you have fans on the other side who are like, no, we want them to represent their country and represent that honor. So it really is always so interesting to see which way the coin falls in terms of how people feel about it.
Yeah, 100%. Because again, a lot of other areas in hockey, again, the international is the goal, whereas in NHL is the goal, and understandably so. But again, we did see Four Nations. It was successful. We did also see some injuries, which again, always going to be controversial. It's the same with the World Baseball Classic. Even when guys, I mean, hello, this is the Locked On Kraken show. I just say the name Chris Drieger, and you know what I'm talking about. You know, got hurt at a World Championships. You know what I'm saying? And then really never came back the same to the Kraken. But I overall do really believe in the international game. But the thing that's important to understand is that when you go from an NHL-led tournament like Four Nations to the Olympics, there are a few things that change. One is that obviously the pool is bigger. So you'll have players like a Philipp Grubauer who will represent Team Germany. He's one of the 6 players that was already announced, because all of the federations have announced their first 6 players, basically all of them being NHLers. So that's exciting for him. But also, the ice is a little bit different. It's wider. Effectively, the dimensions are a little bit different on international ice. But speaking of ice, and speaking of the changes in ice, something that is a little bit disconcerting is that as of October 15th of this year, 2025, as you said earlier, we're recording on October 27th. We are almost 100 days exactly away from the Winter Olympics. And from an article from the Associated Press, usually Olympic venues are tested at least a year before hosting medal events. But in the case of ice hockey, the large hockey arena is not ready or safe 100 days out from the Olympics. And so you talk about just getting hurt in the run of play, but now you have a situation where, Jenny, this ice might not be thoroughly tested before we get to the medal rounds of the men's tournament or the women's tournament coming up for Milan Cortina. I mean, when you think about it, that ice is notorious. Like, hockey players don't really get upset about a lot, but that ice is one of the things they get upset about.
Yeah, I mean, of course, and for good reason, right? Safety should always be the number one priority, of course, and especially when you're that goes back exactly to my other point, why some fans don't want NHL players participating in international hockey, right? The main reason is because of injury and how that will affect teams play later on. So hopefully the Olympics can get everything together and get the ice figured out and have it be kind of top of the line, which the players deserve. But it's also important to point out that I think, the NHL in particular has had kind of a complicated history with their players being on rosters and being able to play in the Olympics or not. So I think there are some people who kind of have the attitude that whatever it takes to make that happen is going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I think, another way that some people might see it is like, oh, well, here we go. This is why we don't want, like you said a little earlier, alluded to, this is why we don't want NHLers going. Like, I mean, let's just state the obvious, hopefully the obvious. It's not every Olympics that an entire venue isn't ready. This one happened to be built up or being remodeled. This one, I think, was the new facility. There's another one that's being remodeled. And so this is just an issue that Olympics are having. That's a conversation for a podcast outside of the purview of Locked On Kraken. But because it is the ice rink, I just wanted to bring it up. This is a too big to fail moment, right? There's no way that they're going to have the main ice where the medal games for the women's and men's tournament are supposed to be played not be ready, right? There's no way that they're going to put athletes in danger. Like I have faith in the IOC, maybe not carte blanche, but at least in that way, right? They're not going to put themselves and, the IOC, International Olympic Committee, doesn't want a blemish, right? Nobody wants this to fail. But it is something that we have to talk about, again, 100 days out. So I'm sure they'll figure it out. Someone will wave a magic wand and it will be all right. But, I just wanted to talk about it overall. But aside from what might be, what hopefully won't be, I should say, a big controversy, I'm here at the Team USA Summit. Brady Tkachuk, I know, I'm so excited. The excitement is real. We got to see some of the jackets that the Team USA Olympians and Paralympians are going to wear. Nike, they put their foot in it, pun intended. In this case, it's actually a jacket. They have these jackets where you can literally you just put a little pump in there and then it contours to your exact body and the temperature that you want to, you're like, ooh, I want a loose little fit. I need some air. Okay, just take a little air out. Or you need to stay warm. It's ridiculous what they're doing here. Everything looks super exciting. Brady Tkachuk is going to be at the conference virtually. And then of course we'll have the women ice hockey players. Hillary Knight is going to be there from PWHL Seattle. So we're excited for that. But overall, what do you think are the stakes? Do you think that NHL fans are going to be like, hey, this is cool, happy to see NHLers? Or does USA or Canada have to win gold? I mean, obviously they're high, on the list of teams that we're expecting to see. But is there a way that this fails, air quotes, kind of fails for NHLers and their return? Or is it all kind of, just a net positive in your mind, Jenny? Or is there something in between? I mean, what are the vibes, do you think, going into these Olympics?
Yeah, I think overall it is a net positive experience, and I think that's what it should be. I think the only way it really fails is if every single NHL player who participates in the Olympics gets injured, which the odds of happening are,
that would be pretty epically failing.
I think that's the only way it would be ever looked at, where it's the entire situation is an epic fail. I think, you hear from NHL players who say they're so excited to do this and that this is their dream. So I think fans should just approach it with that attitude, that this is some of their favorite players' dreams and that they're excited to be there and, see what they can accomplish in February.
Do you think what we saw transpire in Four Nations will create maybe some healthy rivalries that we'll see carry over to the Olympics?
Yes. Yeah, of course. But I think just also while Four Nations was great, the Olympics is just such a huge, huge scale. And obviously this is the Locked On Kraken podcast, so we're focusing on that. But you think about all of the other athletes that are going to be there and how this is kind of a once in a lifetime experience. And I think the scale for the Olympics is always huge.
Yeah, 100%. We're so excited to once again be at an Olympics. Got to go to Beijing as well, and that was when Maddie Beniers was an Olympian before NHLers returned. We'll see. We'll see if any other, Seattle Kraken, either current NHLers or prospects, will make it. Oscar Fisker Molgaard, perhaps for Denmark, might be looking good there. But it will be exciting to see, as you mentioned, all of the athletes, Olympians and Paralympians, of course, that are going to be competing. And we're going to spend some time with them later this week. So make sure you stay locked on Kraken. But Jenny, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Thank you. I'm so glad we got to do this. I'm so glad that you reached out and we're like, hey, like we're women in sports. Let's link up. Let's do it. Before we get out of here, we got to let people know where they can find you. I know we've already talked about some of the work that you have been doing recently, including some articles on the Kraken and Brandon Montour in particular. But where can folks follow your work?
Yeah, people can follow my work by just typing in Jennifer Streeter Sports Illustrated or Jennifer Streeter Breakaway on SI. You can also keep up with all of my work on Twitter. I kind of put my handle there below. It's at Jenny Streeter 3. Would love to connect with fellow Kraken fans. I plan on covering many Seattle games in the future. And Erica, just thank you so much for having me on. It's always so much fun to be able to talk to you.
And we'll just have to have you back on again. Everyone who listens to the show knows I love a guest. Like once you're a guest, you're family. So we'll bring you back again. But Jennifer, thank you so much again. We'll have that handle in the show notes for those listening on audio, so you can make sure to follow Jenny's work. But that is our show. We'll end as we always do. Just a reminder to be kind to yourself, everyone. Take a breath. Do something nice for yourself and really take that in, enjoy it. And hopefully you can expand that self-love to other people as well. We all need to share that love and be patient with each other. But we're going to hold fast. We'll stay true. And loud and proud we say, let's go Kraken. Jenny, thank you so much. And we're going to just have to have you back on Locked on Kraken.
I would love to be back anytime. Thanks so much.
Well, until then, peace out, everybody. Enjoy your Monday.